Raise your hand, please, if you have a Twitter account. If you have a Twitter account, raise your hand. That counts. Raise your hand if you use your Twitter account actively. Literally 3 people in this room use their Twitter account actively. How about a blog, an active blog? When I say active, I'd say more than once a week, updating. Either one. Again, like 3 or 4 people. I'm Hillel Fold. I work in a company called Zula, which you might have heard of today. We're sponsoring, and you've been hopefully networking in the app. I blog and make a hell of a lot of noise online. I have not worked in the nonprofit world. It's very interesting to see the kind of big gap between what goes on in quote unquote my world and I guess your world. I guess we'll address that more later. I'm going to let the panelists introduce themselves. Laura?
Hi everyone, my name's Laura Ben David. I had been working at Nefesh B'Nefesh for quite a few years, running their social media program, everything. And I went off on my own in January, and I had now my own company. Sorry, LBD Creative.
Mike Weitzman, I made until 2 months from now. I made Channel 9's new media, TV channel in Russian language. Before that, I was in Misrad Hachutz Hasbara and social media again in Russian language. Now running a company called Armo. I'm making the new media for Genesis Philanthropic Fund. And that's about it. By the way, Hillel, there is a life outside of Facebook and Twitter. I'll tell it later.
Hi, my name is Eitan Bachman. For the past 7 years, I've been in the IDF in a couple of different roles in strategic communication, mostly the Foreign Affairs Department, and my last role is as the IDF spokesperson for North American media. For the past 8 months, I've been heading up marketing at a very, very technical B2B startup called Freightos, and sharing an office with Hillel.
What's this talk about life outside of Twitter and Facebook? I'm not familiar. All right, so we're just going to jump right in. There's a lot to cover. We've not that much time. So we prepared questions in advance, but while we were sitting here, we got into a little bit of a nice debate, a topic I think is very important to address. So I'll just ask this question, and if anybody has any feedback at any point during this panel, feel free to send it over on Twitter or in the Zula or anywhere else you'd like. But the question was asked here amongst the panelists: what is the major differentiator between the way social is utilized in the tech world or in the business world and the way it's utilized or not utilized in the nonprofit world? Really, how does it differ? And so we had some great insights here that we thought we would share with you. It's an interesting topic that I would love to hear your insights on as well.
Okay, so what I think is that the difference in with social media in the nonprofit is that you're not selling an item per se. You are selling you're selling passion. You're selling a story, and that is an enormous difference from selling something that's tangible, something that you can show and demonstrate, because you have to be able to give over that passion and be able to get people to care. And without that, without being able to show why they should care about what you're promoting, you have nothing. So it's an uphill battle, but it's something that's very, very doable with passion.
I think volunteer organizations, NGOs, Amutot, have more power than economical organization because they have another power called volunteers that willing to help you with the social media, and you have much more work power than you can imagine. So SMM for Amuta have a lot more of willingness to help. Worker in a high-tech company can't help or not willing to help to manage social media for the firm. Volunteer in such organization are gladly will help you with tweeting, facing about it.
Okay, but I'm talking the fundamental difference between the way these platforms are utilized in the different sectors. The fact that you can have volunteers tweeting for you is great, but I mean, fundamentally, how is Twitter used or should be used differently if you're a tech company as opposed to a nonprofit organization?
First of all, we have talked about life outside of Twitter, I can tell you there are at least 2 social networks with 120 million people that you never heard about it. But my sector mostly is not using Twitter, they're using some other social network called VKontakte. And there
What?
are about VKontakte, the Russian Facebook as they called, and there are about 500,000 Israelis, Russian speaking there, and there are 120 million users. So you have another tools and you treat them differently. And as I told you before, you do work social media for Amuta more as journalist and less as a social manager. You write about it, you move the tension and you move the passion about social
Content.
media.
Through
Yeah.
content. Interesting.
Yeah, I would say that as a whole, when properly implemented at a nonprofit, they should be identical in that the process of coming up with a strategic communication plan and implementing it in omni-channel communication with your right goals and your defined target audience are all identical. I think that the primary difference is really when it comes down to what is the content that you're sharing. With the exception of some very, very, very well-respected brands, most brands are trying to sell you something. They're trying to sell value. What a nonprofit has that they can sell, and this was echoed in a Georgetown funded research published in the latest issue of the Stanford magazine. And their biggest idea is that when it comes to nonprofits, involvement used to be based on pyramids. Different levels where people would get more involved, increasingly more involved, and then start to evangelize the brand. Right now, what nonprofits are really seeing, I think, and probably everybody here can agree, that it's more of a vortex. People are coming in at different points. People are coming in never having donated to the organization, but because they believe in the idea and because they associate with it, they want to become online ambassadors as well. So Apple and Google, you can just follow Hill to see like a great example of an online ambassador for Google. But any nonprofit can and should get people like that on board far easier than it will be for a B2B or even a B2C company to do it.
I'm not an online ambassador for Google. I work at Zula. What are you talking about? Anyway,
Look at Hill's Twitter picture.
I do want to kind of maybe go a little bit on the negative side and talk a little bit about what nonprofits are doing wrong. I don't know who here's heard of the name Gary Vaynerchuk. Anybody? Wow, more people that have a Twitter account have heard of the name Gary Vaynerchuk. That is impressive. Gary Vaynerchuk, I'm not going to get into a whole long story, but he actually talks about the way nonprofits use Twitter specifically, and he objects to the fact that they try to close on the first date. They try to get you to convert and sponsor before they even know who you are, before you build any relationship, and self-promote and sell and sell. And clearly in 2014, that's not the way to go about marketing. It's less about pushing and more about listening and pulling. I was really on the fence whether I should bring this up or not. But if we look at today's conference as a case study, we have this tool called Zula that we've been networking in, and if you look at the stream of the way people used it today, there's an amazing networking going on there, and there's a lot of positive energy and positive things going on. Unfortunately, there are too many people using it, viewing it as a sales platform and just self-promoting and putting links to their sites. And again, that's how, at least commonly perceived, that's how nonprofits still use this social media thing, this platform called social media, and it's really not about that. And I think in the tech world, people are starting to get that the companies that quote unquote spam and are aggressively marketing are not getting results, and they're starting to realize how ineffective it is. And I think that the nonprofit world still has some catching up to do on that front. So I would like to ask kind of like what your take is on in terms of the way social, not just Twitter and Facebook, but in general social, is utilized today by the nonprofit world and how they can improve on that front.
Okay, one of the things that I see that a lot of people see social media as like the silver bullet, that this is like, oh my God, we're gonna jump on the social media bandwagon and that's it, it's gonna solve all of our problems. And nothing could be further from the truth. Social media is a tool and it needs to be part of the overall strategy and the overall plan. What a lot of people do is they have this, if you build it, they will come philosophy, that they go and they set up their Facebook page and voila, suddenly they're gonna have fans, suddenly they're gonna have engagement. They put an event on Facebook or wherever they want to put it and they think that suddenly they're going to have people coming to their event, or even just like put a donate now button on their website and voila, people are just going to press that button and donate. And it doesn't work like that. It works as a tool, it works as part of an overall strategy, And that's the one thing that is important for me to impart to any amuta or any business, but in particular amutot, which usually have a much a lower budget and less resources, and they really do look at this. They say, oh, let's just bring a social media person, and they're going to solve our problems. They're going to bring in hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it doesn't work like that. It is absolutely a tool. It does not replace your mailing list. It does not replace your PR or your marketing. It is one piece of a full, robust, and complete social media program.
Let me add to what Laura just said. Social media is addition value to your Amuta. It's not instead of Amuta. It's not instead of fundraising. It's a tool, it's visualizing tool, it's a beautiful picture to visualize it to world abroad. It cannot come instead of your sales work. Using social media as your advertising banner not works. By the way, Zula today only proved the advertisement down there made the negative effect, not networking.
So I want to answer that with a question, actually. With a show of hands, how many people here are paying somebody to do their social media?
Well,
How-
we're the ones that are doing the social media and being paid.
Yeah. Right. All right. We'll ignore Rafi.
Everyone always does. It's okay. That's why it's there.
How many people have defined KPIs, key performance indicators? How many people have something determined that says this is how well this person is doing, and this is what we want them to accomplish with social media beyond increasing visibility? Okay. If you don't have goals, no business will pay a social media person to do social media without having a defined goal, without having a strategy. So whether you're using your social media to generate leads, to do customer support if you're in the business world, to increase your visibility, you have to know exactly what you're doing, and you have to define KPIs that will make sure that the person that you're paying money to do social media, or if you're doing social media yourself, you have to benchmark yourself to make sure that you're actually accomplishing something. Yeah.
אצלנו בעמותה, השינוי האמיתי קרה שחבר'ה צעירים, בני גרעין נחל, אנשים שבאמת חיים את החיים שלהם, את הקהילה הווירטואלית, נכנסו לארגון, ולהם ניתנה, הם ניהלו את העניינים ברשתות החברתיות. אני רוצה להגיד לך שאף אחד שהשיגו קודם והרבה מאוד כסף לא הבין את התוצאות שהם הביאו. כי בן אדם יכול להיות איש מקצוע, אבל מישהו שבגיל 8 כבר היה לו פייסבוק והוא הגיע לסיבות כיתה עם פייסבוק, מבין את הדברים האלה אחרת.
I think as the youngest person on the panel, I wholeheartedly agree with you.
No,
Only young people could do things right.
But I think you nailed it. You actually may not have meant to address this point, but again, when it comes to social, forget the buzzword, social media, okay? But this platform is a glorified communication channel, right? It's no different.
Social.
It's social.
Still, you cannot trust unprofessional to do it professionally solely.
I am professional that can track them and I can see what they do and I can put them goals.
If it works for you, volunteers works for you, it's great.
The way they know what is going on, they are out of Facebook already. Nobody who is in Facebook anymore, mothers are on Facebook.
It's true. Authenticity is key. If it's real, you can be the best social media professional in the world. But if you're using tactics and you're adding certain things because you think it will get more traction, but it's not authentic, users and your followers will see it in a second.
Now, I'm not a student in Seattle. I wouldn't know how to be. I'm clueless intelligent. Okay? I don't
Okay.
have a clue really
Yet.
what Twitter, any of that stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. And I am wondering about donors my age, or 10 years younger, or 10 years older. Donors, major donors, people from my generation with big money to invest in big projects. Are they, I don't know how to do or follow, that's why I'm sitting here, Twitter or Facebook or any of that stuff. And I'm wondering if the people that I'm trying to reach are following that stuff, or if they prefer the old-fashioned way that I'm used to working.
So the answer is social media, again, is a buzzword that we all like to use, but irrelevant. The platform, whether it's Twitter or Facebook or other platforms that were mentioned here, the platform is irrelevant. Wherever your target audience is where you need to be. And if your target audience isn't on Twitter, don't waste your time with Twitter, obviously. But the reality is that at the foundation of all of these new tools is something I just like to call value. If you're there and you're just spewing the same stuff that everybody else is saying, you're just making noise, and it's of no value. But if you're providing content, you refer to journalists, and in this world of nonprofits, it's really not about being there. It's about being there and enabling me as a donor or as anybody else that's your target audience to connect with your cause, whatever that may be, emotionally. Because at the end of the day, if I'm not connecting with you, then what are we doing here? When I say you, I mean your cause. So Twitter, Facebook, if they're there, great. And to learn it, either it's you or someone else who will do it for you. It really depends on your target audience.
Choose your channel wisely. People of your age are starting to learn new channels. My mother, my grandmother, even my grandmother started to look and ask questions about Facebook. If it won't work for your generation, use the channel you regular to them. If only newspaper article, so use it.
So if I want to experiment, my fantasy is that I will go, or someone will send me to digital and social media boot camp. That I can just go for 2 weeks of intensive immersion, and someone who really knows how to use it will teach me. Does that exist here in Israel?
Yeah,
It's a new project for Bloomberg Prize, I think.
I do that. But besides for that, because we're not promoting ourselves here, what I really wanted to say actually is that in terms of reaching out to like those big donors and so forth, I don't believe that social media is the tool for that. It cannot replace those one-on-one phone calls and those one-on-one meetings where you're actually going and sourcing those big donations. That's not social media. Social media, you can create campaigns and you can and reach a lot of people for the smaller to medium donations. And you can certainly reach out in terms of praising and thanking big donors if they're on social media, even if they're not. But certainly if they are, they very much appreciate that shout out on Facebook or wherever. But in terms of those big donations, that's not what it's for. And anyone who thinks it is going to be disappointed.
Let me just add another element to this, again, this thing called social. We're all talking all the time about, again, selling or bringing donations or other forms of selling. But there's another element that maybe we might be forgetting, and that's loyalty. And that's the upsell, the follow-up, right? Again, if I'm quoting Gary Vaynerchuk, I mentioned before, if you're driving on the highway and you see a billboard for Sony, okay? You buy a Sony product. Tomorrow, Toshiba will call you, and they'll say, you bought that product for $99. I'll give it to you for $98. You're out of there. You have no loyalty to Sony. You converted, right? You bought that product. That's every traditional marketer's dream, is to convert you, to sell to you. Whereas on social, if I'm reading, for example, if I'm going to oversimplify, if I'm reading a Sony blog for 7 years, every day, I'm reading their content, and their content's not about themselves, it's not selling, but it's interesting, analyzing the market, talking about trends, where the market's going, where it came from. It's just interesting content that I read every day and I actually get value from. When the day comes that I do have to convert and buy a product and become your target audience, where am I going to go? I'm going to go to the company that provided me value for all those years. And that's something that's loyalty, that's sentiment that you cannot achieve in traditional marketing. So, again, an amazing story in my opinion is that Gary Vaynerchuk, sold wine in the beginning of his career, and one of the first big sales that he made, he could have just said thank you. The guy came in and bought $10,000 worth of wine. He could have just said thank you, but he chose to do something very interesting. He opened the guy's Twitter account, and he followed him for a few weeks, and he learned that the guy is a very big fan of a certain football player. He then opened up eBay.com, and he bought the jersey, the shirt of that football player signed by the player, and he sent it to the guy's house. The guy sent back a response basically saying, I'll never buy wine from another company until the day I die. Because he took that extra effort, and it took him a week, 2 weeks, and $80 on eBay. But he just gained a lifelong customer that you cannot achieve with traditional marketing. It's the loyalty, it's the sentiment, it's the emotion. And that's true whether you're in tech, whether you're in business, whether you're in nonprofits. And that's something that you have to leverage social for. You can't do that by selling. I want some examples of companies that you guys, see on social and are inspired by and think they're doing it right, that really get it.
So one that I've noticed, I tried to look at a bunch that were very relevant, and I chose Rethink Israel. How many of you have seen or heard of Rethink Israel? Okay, so Rethink Israel, it's fairly new, and they basically, are rebranding Israel and showing nice stories. Their Facebook page opened in October of 2013, and they're at, I think, about 260,000 likes. So they're doing something right. And what I've noticed, and they're a nonprofit, and what they're doing is that, first of all, they have incredible content, but that is their business. So it's a lot easier to have great content if that is what you do. But they have great content and a great variety, and they also put in a lot of budget. They put in a lot of effort into promoting their posts and really getting it out there. Yeah?
Another thing they do is they don't sell.
They don't sell. Well,
I'm
most nonprofits
No,
don't really
No,
sell.
I'm saying they haven't asked for one donation yet. That's the most important thing that they're not doing there, is not selling. They're talking to provide the value about Israel, and then if someone's interested enough to become interested in Rethink Israel, they will follow the channels which was the goal of what Rethink Israel is all about. So that's something
Right.
very
You didn't hear what Mordechai said, that basically that they're putting things out there for free. They're giving you this content. They're not asking for anything back. It makes you feel good, and they're very shareable, very retweetable, and likable. And
Any affiliate site will tell you this.
I'm sorry.
Any affiliate site will tell you this. Be free content, be lovable, and then when the time will come, people will press the link.
That's right. That's right.
Can I ask a different question?
Sure.
I work for a nonprofit organization, and we're looking to hire someone to run our Facebook page. If you would have to prepare me for that meeting and say, listen, Renee, these are the 4 points you need to bring up in that meeting, or these are the 4 points you need to identify, what would they be?
Talking about goals?
I'm coming in as a customer. Yeah, I have to now negotiate in a field that I less understand. I'm not, this is an area that I'm not professional in. And I have to make sure that I'm gonna get to them what I need. So what are the 4 things that I should make sure to say to them on my list, to either get them to get them to explain to me,
So as a good Jew, I'm going to answer your question with a question. How many here have seen somebody say on Facebook, please like my page? You ever get that? Please like my page? People asking you to like their page? There is a fundamental flaw, in my opinion, in the way Facebook is engineered. Because on Twitter, if I share something interesting, it has the potential, not the potential, it's happened hundreds of, if not thousands of times, to go viral. Whereas on Facebook, the people that are viewing the content that I share on my page are people that already like my page. So when I put on my page, please like my page, you know who sees that? The people that already liked it. You're preaching to the choir. What are you going to do to increase the amount of traction that we get for our organization? That's number one, because personally, honestly, after many years of working in this field, I don't have an answer to that question. I can count on one hand the amount of people.
Avoid the direct call to action. That's what I mean. To avoid direct call to action. Don't ask liking you. Just give them the content they like.
Well, that's the answer that I expect from them. But I would ask them, in order for you to evaluate their knowledge and familiarity of the space, I would say, how do you intend on increasing our traction? And if the answer is by sending a message to all my friends asking them to like my page, then you can hereby end that meeting.
What I would say is I would ask them of how they feel or what they think about your industry, organization. You want to know that they're going to be able to put authentic passion behind what they do, or else it just won't work, no matter how experienced they are.
I don't think you want to get somebody who knows Facebook. That's not your priority. Your priority is somebody who knows how to communicate. Because somebody who understands Facebook but doesn't know how to write good copy, or doesn't know how to get a message out,
Or tell a story.
is not going to be very helpful for you. Somebody who understands the idea of communication rather than Facebook communication is far more valuable. And I think the best example is how fast things die out. Okay, if you look at August 1998, Yahoo, Lycos, and InfoSeek controlled 60% of the search market. Okay, look for something that has to do with Lycos right now. Lycos exists. I checked it up yesterday. It's still there, but I hadn't seen it for over 10 years. Okay, things change, and the social media world changes even faster. Last week I downloaded Yo because everyone was downloading it. Yesterday I deleted Yo because I couldn't find any of my friends on it.
Can't believe we talked about that app. Gosh.
Basically, you need somebody who understands communication and is savvy enough to stay up with communication, who can stay updated rather than somebody who knows the snapshot of what's happening right now.
I 100% agree. It's about storytelling. It's the platform is close to irrelevant. Whether or not you tell that story on Facebook or on Twitter or somewhere else or by email or by phone, it's the story that you need to tell.
And then how do I measure the results? Like the number of hits, is that a result? What's a result on social media?
If-
So what's the result?
If you're
Like-
talking specifically about Facebook,
Well, I don't, most Israelis, I don't think have Twitter. Do they?
Allow me to tell a little dirty secret. You can buy likes.
Oh.
It won't help you.
Yeah.
Tell the story. Do it viral enough to people to share. As one was who was responsible for two really viral campaigns that exploded with a couple of thousand of likes and stuff. I won't promote myself. Won't tell. Hélène. Do it the way the people will be gladly sharing between them. The storytelling is what works for you, not the likes and not the clicks.
let me
Clicks are botable, you can buy it.
let me ask you a question. Again, if you think about let's exit the nonprofit world for 1 second. If you think about some of the strong brands out there, okay? Think about Nike. Think about what other good examples? Apple, Reebok, maybe a little bit less. Could be. One of the stronger brands out there, I think, is Red Bull. Irrelevant of whether or not you like the drink, Red Bull's everywhere. If you now take your phone, or later on when you get home, look on your computer and go to redbull.com, literally, without exaggeration, you will not know that this company sells a drink. I kid you not. The word drink or beverage does not appear on redbull.com. It is 100%, not 99%, 100% content. Now, they have advertising budget. You know, they do their Formula One advertising. I'm not saying they're not naive. They do acquire quote unquote customers, but their marketing focus as a brand is content. Now, how do you measure, the success of this content? Yes, there are companies and there are ways to measure it. There are many Israeli companies who deal with this. There's companies like Radiant 6 and Trax that measure how many times people mention you on social media and even sentiment in a way they measure what people feel about you, whether it's, surveys, etc. But the reality is, when you consistently provide value in the form of good content, and that content doesn't have to be a blog, it doesn't have to be cute cat pictures, it could be anything. It could be videos, it could be interviews, it could be anything. But it gives your client base, your target audience, the ability to connect with you, and the ROI will be so obvious to you in the long run when your brand is elevated. Because at the end of the day, if Red Bull had spent, the time analyzing how much each form of content that they're producing will generate brand awareness, they wouldn't have reached, where they reached today. They spent the time generating content. They know they believe in content, and they went all the way with it. And their brand is evidence of what they, invested. And so the answer is yes, measure. No one's saying not to measure. If you're not measuring, you're not marketing. But don't spend your time, looking at analytics every day for half an hour and saying, oh my gosh, I only went up 5 clicks today and 10 clicks. No. Be consistent, provide value. Long term, the ROI will come in spades. Much, much more than you can ever dream of on traditional marketing. And again, it's not, they're not mutually exclusive. No one's saying not to do customer acquisitions, or in your case, outreach, whatever it is, through email. But social media is a whole different ballgame. It's about letting me emotionally connect with you, and the ROI will come.
Guys, be consistent with your social media. It's much easier to open a new Facebook page and bring life to it than reliving some dead brand page. Be consistent with your materials. Don't neglect your media. Be stable with it, with content. Don't push over 3 tweets a day and then live in it for a week.
All right, I'm gonna, yeah.
If you're talking about, presenting good content and everything will come, I kind of want to know more specifically what good content looks like. What does that mean?
That's a good question. It's a subjective thing, clearly a subjective thing.
We're all working on the cook, so we're telling ideas, we're telling stories. What's a good way of telling a story?
You just said the good content right there.
So don't necessarily use these platforms to just tell your story. That's what it's very easy to fall into the trap of, let's say, from if I'm going to simplify it and talk about a blog for 1 second, okay? Put video aside, put all the other forms of content aside. Let's talk about a blog for 1 second. If you have a blog, if you're Amuta, and again, we asked the question before, how does it differ? Personally, in my opinion, it's the same fundamental principles, whether you're in tech or business or in the nonprofit world when it comes to social media. Don't fall into the trap of telling your story exclusively. If I'm talking in my world, for example, I tell startups and companies that I work with, define your niche, right? If your niche is this, can you see right? You have a specific niche. So don't then write content about this. But don't write content about this either. Don't just talk about yourself. It's the worst. Self-promotion just doesn't work today, period. So broaden your fingers a bit, broaden your hand a bit, and address a niche that's a little bit wider than yours, but not too wide. So if I'm, for example, a mobile advertising company, okay? Don't write a blog about technology and then compete with 50,000 or a million other blogs. Maybe talk about mobile. Something a little broader that will attract people that are not necessarily your target today, but they might be tomorrow. But don't talk about something that's completely unrelated, obviously. So the answer is, if you're whatever kind of Amuta you are, talk about what's going on in that world that surrounds you, and that, and do it in a language that's global. If I'm talking, getting down to the nitty gritty, don't focus on your target audience today. Focus on an audience that could become your target audience tomorrow. That help a bit? You want to get down to more nitty gritty?
I would also, I would add to that I think one major asset that most organizations ignore is the amount of data that they have internally. If you look at profit companies like Zillow, Zillow made all its money off inbound marketing because they had enough internal data about the U.S. real estate market that you could log in and see how much your house is worth. Okay, as a nonprofit, you either are creating data, you're doing research, or you're consuming data. Either way, you are probably a subject matter expert for data that nobody else has. So leverage that. Take your internal stuff. Take the data that you are getting from either external sources or manufacturing, and make sure that you're pushing it out as much. There's no reason to keep it inside. Okay, use the stuff that you create inside anyways, whether it's ancillary to your actual goal or not, and push that out as content.
I also want to add that, first of all, in terms of what content looks like, it looks like a lot of different things. I definitely 100% agree with Hillel in terms of that, taking your niche and widening it just a bit so that you're able to be broader than just this tiny, narrow bit that you're actually covering. But you want to be the king of your own content. You want to be somebody that's looked at as a leader in whatever your area of expertise is, and people should come to you and think, oh, this entity, this organization, this Amuta, they know whatever, they know, and whatever it is that you happen to deal with, and then you become that expert. But the other thing is that it looks like a lot of different things. So when it looks like, and I take it literally, it can look like a story. It can be something that's a tearjerker, or it can be something that's amusing, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a story. Content can also be an image. It can be an image with text. It can be text. It can be an event that you're giving information about, whether it's your event or not. But it can be anything. You can be a curator and a content creator, and you should be. You should be doing both, and it should all be coming from you. It should be that they should look at you as the expert in knowing what's going on and what is important in your field, whatever it may be.
Moreover, you have the greatest tool I have told about, you have the volunteers. One of the most working posts in social media with my projects was meet the person, meet the volunteer. In each week, we have promoted some other volunteer, enlightened it, picturized it, his work, and actually it worked not only with him, it worked with all of the volunteers. I really adore projects and applications in social media that connects between virtual and real. The greatest model I have seen lately was a Canadian Red Cross organization project. They had a volunteer market in it's great field. It's a couple of biggest cities, millions of citizens. They just put a market that anybody could declare, okay, I will give $5 for a picture of a doll. Anything you could do voluntarily, and they published it, they geolocated it in the map. It worked like a charm. because of the volunteering project of the same area are connected. The funds and fundraisers are connected too, and they had promotion about a couple of millions of viewers, more than TV.
I think that what I would add to that, I'm a very cup half full kind of a person. I think that that is a way that really does well on social media. The people are drawn to positivity, but you can't avoid negativity, whether it's something that's negative about your company, about your industry, or something negative that happens on the outside that gets brought to the attention of your, on your Facebook page or on Twitter. I think that the most important thing is honesty and not trying to skirt the issue, being direct, dealing with it the way you need to deal with it. Don't make a big deal about it, but deal with it and move on. And people will forget, and it will be able to go behind.
By the way, just a Shui Fogel. Is he here somewhere?
I'll be once again a devil's advocate. Everything, there is no bad PR. And not just like Hillel said, if I have a bad news, do the argument, use it as discussion. If it draws comments, if it draws attention, that brings attention to your social media.
Just want to point out, Shui Fogel pointed out, sent me a message that a great example of an organization that is master of the area of expertise without pushing themselves on the internet is World Wildlife Society. Talk about, you know, their whole niche, and they become the kind of the thought leader in their space about saving endangered animals. So that's really how it's done, and it's very, very possible to do in your world. We're really running short on time. I just want to first end up with one story, and then I'm going to ask the panelists one more question. But again, I think in many ways the fundamental principles are the same, and just something that happened to me personally. You know, a few years ago, I'm sitting at work minding my own business one morning, and I get a tweet to the company Twitter account asking me in caps lock, which if you're not familiar on the internet basically means you're yelling at me, saying, has anybody ever used your product? Now this is public, which could have quickly turned into a PR crisis. The guy had a lot of followers, and I wrote back to him from the company Twitter account, of course, what seems to be the problem? And he wrote to me, I'm trying to use your product for 3 months, I can't get it to work. And so I publicly replied saying, here's my email address, send me information. 5 minutes later, I had an email in my inbox explaining what the problem was. I replied, maybe 5 minutes of ping pong back and forth by email, and I solved his problem. He then opens up his Twitter account to his 50,000 followers and writes, Dear, name of the company, you are my hero. Now, if you step back for 1 second and analyze what happened here, in the traditional marketing world, you can, again, convert. Best case scenario, you turn someone into a customer. If they're not aware of your brand, or if they're not a customer, you can turn them into a customer. In this case, I took someone who was a quote-unquote hater of the brand. He was angry at me 5 minutes before, and I turned him not into a customer, but into an ambassador. And that's something that can only happen through emotion. And he was so grateful, and he was so happy that I heard his complaint, and I answered it. And I did it professionally. I did it in real time. And he then turned into our ambassador, which till today, he literally, till today, is tweeting about the company and doing our work for us. That's something that you can never achieve in traditional marketing, and that is something that you can leverage in the nonprofit world. I'm just going to end off with one more question. 3 tips that each one of you guys can give the audience here in terms of what they can do on social to enhance their presence and their awareness.
Okay. I think that that people need to, at the very, very beginning, or if you've already been doing it for a while, then now, take a look at what you have and see if you are representing your brand the best way you can. Look at your profile pictures, your cover photos, everything, everywhere that you have an opportunity to brand yourself, to brand your Amutah. And be sure that it's clear, it's clean, it looks good, it's accurate. And if there's an opportunity to put in what your Amutah does, put it in there. Fill in everything. They're giving you all of this free advertising space. Don't waste it. Whether it's Facebook, putting in the links, whatever links you want to put in there that they allow you to put them in. On Twitter, putting your explanation, filling in all of the images that they give you. Use them. Take advantage of it.
To add to Laura, Facebook and almost every social network uses visuals, pictures, videos, and music more than just text. Use more visuals. And the other one, don't overuse trendy technology like hashtags. I find it a little disturbing, people using it and they don't know how to use it right, how to use it correctly. Don't overuse the trendy tools you have.
Hashtag, that's your opinion. Okay, I got three, I think, takeaway tips. The first one I mentioned, which is leveraging your internal data for additional content generation. The second thing is that I don't perceive of social media as one-to-many. I think it's one-to-one to one-to-one. Each time you post something, you're trying to get to individuals. And for that, I would say, look at Twitter, and this is a good term to use as somebody who was doing it when I was in the IDF. Use Twitter or use Facebook as targeted strikes. Do research about people. There's a tool called Twitterland, twtrland.com, that lets you research leaders of specific fields in specific regions. Find the right person and reach out to them. Freight, again, I said I'm in a freight startup company, is immensely boring. Okay, nobody really wants to hear about freight, but by reaching out to the right reporters over Twitter, we got publications in Bloomberg and TechCrunch. Okay, so get to the right people and half your work is already done. The third thing I would say is cultivate your online presence by letting as many people contribute as possible. So Dell, about 5 years ago, decided to change the way they did social media by empowering every one of their employees to tweet or to perform on social media, okay? So you could train your other employees to take part and formally represent your organization, and then suddenly, instead of having one person tweeting, you have 10 people tweeting, or 15 people tweeting, or 20 people tweeting. You can see the key takeaways of what I just said at buckman.co.il/amuta21c, if you didn't catch that.
I like the one-to-one thing. That's actually really interesting, and that's what we did before with the earphones. It reminded me very much of the way social should be used. It's really not about blasting and broadcasting, and like you said, it's social. It is social, and that's why the word social media, the phrase social media is problematic, because it's social, and media generally or traditionally meant broadcast. It's more about communicating. It's just a glorified communication platform, and so it really needs to be used that way by tech companies and by nonprofits. Any questions?
What's the relevance of LinkedIn to us?
It's a very good question. LinkedIn is a secret weapon, I think, of social media. People use it a lot as a networking tool, which it's great for, but if you join groups, relevant groups, and you partake in the conversation, the discussion there, and you share content, and you offer your expertise, and you brand yourself as a thought leader in your space, it is not only going to drive an immense amount of traffic in quantity, but the quality of the traffic there is highly targeted. If you're tweeting, you could be targeting, your grandmother or some movie star. Whereas if you're in that LinkedIn group about your area, your niche, the people that are in that group are people that you want to reach. Period. No one else is in that group. If they're in the group, they're your audience. Reach out to them there. It's very, very targeted traffic, and it's high quality and high quantity.
It's starting to rise its wave. Use it. It's direct. It's direct to your target, to your sector, and a lot of funds uses LinkedIn for finding your goal. Because start use it.
We're getting killed on time, so if anybody's any questions, I'm here. Totally come over and ask me questions. I'm sorry I had to cut short, but thanks, guys.